Hello, everyone. How are you, Solreta? Hi, everybody. I'm Sophie from Maison Jupiter. I'm sorry, I'm having a panic attack right now. Hi, everybody. Solreta, can you speak while I'm just
Yeah.
calming
Don't
down?
worry, Sophie. You're fine. We just want to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in the chat. We really appreciate it. And yeah, Sophie and I were so excited to pick Amelia Earhart. So she came up Sophie asked me to put together a list of people that I would love to research or find out more about. And it's so interesting because as we're talking about her, I'm just getting spidey tickles just around my crown chakra and feeling someone stand on my left hand side right here as well. So I did feel like when we were choosing her, that we both felt her energy come in strong. And
Mhm.
from researching and looking into this, there's just such like a strong energy character with this person. So yeah, we both individually had her on a list. I think it was the only person we both chose that kind of lapped over. I don't know if we put two of the same people on the list. So this is
Yeah.
going to be a great show.
Thank you so much for helping me with this. I cannot believe when I do live shows how stressful it is for me. Even though it's been 2 years, I will be eternally really frozen every time I have to be in front of public, especially live. So thank you so much for everybody that is really gracious with this and patient with me. I will be taking the read now. So hi, Sarita, officially, and this time correctly. You're beautiful tonight. How are you? And thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me as well. And I love doing this with you together. And, you know, we all go through moments of feeling anxious and overwhelmed and things. And, you know, I think a lot of people have good understanding on these sorts of things. And I think, especially when we're empathic and sensitive,
Oh,
we tend to feel things a lot more. So, yeah.
absolutely. And for everyone that I had in one-on-one consultation that said to me, I cannot do this because of this and this reason, you have the proof right there that you can absolutely do it. I do it every time with panic. I do it every time with stress. And it's just, you end up settling in and it end up really being good. So thank you for this community to be there. I'm going to start with our topic today. It is going to be Amelia Earhart. We wanted to cover her, like you said, Sarita, because we both had her on our list. And this is a mystery that is super important that we dive deep into it with the tarot cards. So she is known to be a pioneer in aviation and a woman at that time. It was really special, but she is mainly known, I would say, unfortunately, because she disappeared mysteriously, and that was really something that still today we don't know what happened. And I think we have something in the news recently that talked about what may have happened, but even though it was said in the news that they found some things. We're going to look into it. Is it really true? Is there other ways that we can really see this happening and everything? So send us your questions in the chat. We will try to take as much questions from you guys as possible. And thank you for joining us from Rumble, from Facebook, and everywhere else. We are about everywhere now. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Rumble, we have YouTube. It is a growing community, and we are trying so much to give you as much free content as possible. So your likes, your support, and your share means the world to us. Thank you so, so much. And I'm going to start with giving you a little bit of background because I really honestly starting this, I really didn't know a lot about her. So if it's the case for you too, I will start with giving you a little bit of background, and Sarita will cover the main event. I cannot wait to have your part in it. Can I
Uh,
ask you the first question, Sarita?
yeah, sure.
I would like to know what type of soul was she?
Yeah. So I actually did. Spirit guided me to do a face reading on her. So
Mm.
it was really, really fascinating. And she has a really interesting, intriguing face too. So I think let's have a look into the cards. And did you want me to leave the face reading side to like the second segment, or do you want to have a look into that now?
Um, go with what you feel. It's the most
Yeah,
helpful.
sure. So let's have a look. I'll just get three cards to quickly have a look into what kind of spirit she was. And I still feel that energy of like her around here. So what we're seeing is overcoming a lot of stuff. So we
Mhm.
do see like a highly kind of like magnetic character and soul. So we have the card of lust, but we also see it's like having to kind of control things. So I'm just going to pop up this bigger one for a second. Oh, thanks. And yeah, so we can sort of see like she has a lot of energy, a lot of magnetism, and she's also using that sort of more kind of like divine feminine energy to overcome like what we would say is more kind of like a control like masculine dominated thing. We also see Prince of Wands, which is someone who's also on a bit of a spiritual mission. So I do feel there was something about being, you know, a female to kind of be groundbreaking and to there's really kind of like a spiritual drive and energy. But I'll just talk quickly about or actually this might take a little bit to go over the face side of things because I've got like
Yeah.
quite a bit of information. So maybe we'll save that a little.
It's interesting that you mentioned the divine feminine in her and her feminine energy, because she was mainly a man energy all throughout the notes of what I have discovered about her. And let me know in the comment. But all about her is screaming men, 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 men. So the fact that she was in a body of a female, for me, it's just blowing my mind that she accepted to go through this big divine masculine energy, but in the challenge of that time in a divine feminine body.
And that's where we get into the face reading things is
Ah.
it's kind of questionable when you look into body shape and you look into bone structure and things like that. I'm not 100% certain that she is entirely female, even though she presented to have a female type energy. So this is going to get a little bit deeper and convoluted. Even like with the face reading sign of things, where we see like more exposure to testosterone, different bones will form in certain structures. And she definitely
Mm.
had more testosterone than your average female.
Yeah. So interesting. I cannot wait to know more about this. Let's get started with her. I had the picture. So this is her. How cute is she was when she was young? I really think that she was adorable on that picture.
Yeah.
Um, Amelia was born on July 24th, 1897 in Archinson, Kansas, in the US. Her full name is Amelia Mary Earhart. Her father was a lawyer, and her grandfather on the mother's side was a judge in Kansas. So she was raised pretty unconventionally for the time. At the time, she was, let me put that a bit bigger so you can see it better. There you go. So at the time, she was really raised really unconventionally because her mother did not believe in raising her children to be nice little girls. So I don't know if you know it, but she had a very big spirit for adventure from a very young age. It didn't come later in life. She was climbing trees, exploring the neighborhood. She had a growing collection of moth and worms. This is not what little girls typically do. She also wore bloomers instead of dresses. What our bloomers are going to say? I found a picture. Did you know what are bloomers?
I think, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Wow.
Yeah. So this is pants, basically, but with the skirt that goes on top of it. And you have to remember at that time wearing pants for female was illegal, not just frowned upon, illegal. So having this kind of possibility was really controversial, but that gave us a lot of freedom of movement instead of corset and dresses and everything. So she wore those as a little girl. And in 1904, with the help of her uncle, they built a ramp on top of the tool shed. So this is basically a roller coaster that she built, and she used a broken wooden box as a sled. So if you can imagine what it looked like, she ended up having a bruised lip, a torn dress, and she said that she loved that. It was just like flying. We do have someone that is a bit of an adrenaline junkie. We have someone that is really looking for adventure. So this is Amelia Earhart, 100%. In 1914, her father had to retire because of his problem with alcohol, if you know what I'm saying. And he never recovered really from this. Amelia, a grandmother, died the same year, leaving them a large sum of money, but there was a lot of worry that Amelia's father would exhaust the fund pretty quickly. Interesting fact, when she was growing up, she kept a scrapbook of newspaper clippings about successful women in male-dominated careers. So this is definitely super clear, even from a young age, what was her mission on Earth and what she came here to do. In 1917, she received a training as a nurse aide and began working in the voluntary aid detachment. That's where she heard a lot of stories from military pilots and developed an interest in flying. So I don't know for you, Sol, but I had an image of what it would look like, this voluntary aid detachment as a nurse. Pretty romanticized, I think, in my head. Have you looked what it looks like?
No, I haven't.
Let me show it to you. That may not be the best picture, but this is actually a picture from that time, what it looked like. And this is not glamorous at all.
Not
This
at
is
all. It
English
looks
patient.
depressing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this is in 1917. The next year, she was a nurse in a hospital, and she got infected by the pandemic of the Spanish flu. This is pre-antibiotic, so she had to get surgeries, many painful surgeries to attempt to drain the sinuses. It was unsuccessful, all of them, and it left her with headaches and chronic sinus infection. This is not good when you fly, so it affected her flying for all the rest of her life. The recovery from the Spanish flu itself took her a full year. And this is where we know it's pre Netflix, because during her pandemic, during that year, she is actually researching on mechanic. So she took that year and she was just learning tons of knowledge. This is what happens when you don't have TVs.
I didn't know that about the sinuses either, because I can actually see that in her physiography. So that is fascinating.
You do see that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Just looking at the bone structure, and just you can sort of see sometimes where some certain areas will cause more issues than others.
Okay, interesting. So I'm going to look in the cards. I would like to know now. This is an illness that stayed with her all of her life. She suffered from a full year. So I want to know, what was that about, and what was the main lesson that she had to learn from it? So we have Ace of Wands, the Moon, Ace of Pentacles, and we have the Two of Pentacles, the Ten of Wands, and the Tower. Okay, so basically what it means, I have a lot of cards. So I'm just going to show it quickly. Ace of Wands. I know it's really small, but it's Ace of Wands, the Moon, and Ace of Pentacle. I'm just going to make that a bit bigger for you guys. Ace of Wands, the Moon, Ace of Pentacle. We have the Two of Pentacle, 10 of Wands, the Tower, and 7 of Cups. All of this means that basically this was something that was supposed to give her motivation. It was supposed to give her a purpose. But also, because of that Two of Pentacles and what is on the other side of it, we know that what is happening truly with this, it was supposed to prevent a passing.
And it's interesting, Seven of Cups is my sinus lymphatic fluid card in my favorite deck. It usually is an indication of, toxins and things like that, or, things we're trying to purge out the body. So maybe it was a real lingering thing for her.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's super interesting that you use this card for this.
Mm.
I use this card mainly as, depending on which image is on which deck, of course, it will
Yeah.
always switch. But in this, it says fantasy. So with those cards, it looked like she was not seeing clearly, and some of occasions, that should have been a warning that flying was super dangerous for her, and that should have stopped her from maybe going into the last mysterious disappearance.
Wow. Interesting.
So it was supposed to be, I think, as a way to block her to go too far, but she did go too far. And we're going to see if what happened was her fault or not. So let's bring this back and let's continue with her life. In 1920, she was a passenger on a short flight. So this is basically a flight of 10 minutes that she paid to be on as a passenger just to try it. And she said, by the time I got to 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly. So all of her life is just leading her to this experience of flying. The next month, she didn't lose time. Next month, she paid a flying instructor, and her mother helped her to pay. The same mother that raised her to be as adventurous as she wanted to be is also helping her in flying, although it is 1920 and women are not really free to do what they want. So with this, we do have her trying now to be a pilot, and her cutting her hair short. I think we see that on the picture. And she purchased a secondhand yellow biplane, which she nicknamed the Canary. Cute name.
Yeah.
In 1922, Earhart flew to an altitude of 14,000 feet, setting the world record for female pilot. And I think this is something we're going to see a lot with her. She's really competitive, and she doesn't have a stop. She doesn't have a limit. She always aims for more. So the next thing that she does is, so in 1923, in fact, she becomes also the 16th woman in the United States to get a pilot license. So this is really, really new. There's not a lot of female that are pilots. And in the 1920s, there comes a lot of problems. Unfortunately, she has a lot of financial problems. The money from the grandmother is completely exhausted. Her pain from the sinuses worsened, and she needed to be hospitalized for another surgery, painful surgery, and unsuccessful for the sinus again. She tried a number of ventures to gain her money, but nothing succeeded. She even had a photography company. At the end, she had to sell her plane for money because there was nothing else that could be done. She found a job the next year as a teacher, and she eventually became a social worker. Did you know that about her?
No, and just some of the other things that like you're touching on as well. I love the research that you put together and all the hard work. And I saw Tim saying that just before as well.
Thank you. I didn't know there was such a lot of areas where she had a lot of knowledge. She seemed to know a lot about a lot of different topics. So I like her for this.
Yeah.
During her job as a social worker, she maintained, of course, her interest in aviation. She became a member of the aviation local newspaper column and eventually being elected as its vice president. That's what I was saying, by a lot of goals, and she had a lot of ambition. In 1928, she is the first woman to cross Atlantic by flying. She was only a passenger, but still she was the first one. And I think this is really just the start for her, because it gave her a taste of what it could be to be the first woman to do something with flying. In 1931, this is one of my favorite guys from the story. I just love him. She married George Putnam. He proposed to her 6 times. After 6 times, she finally agreed. And even though it is in 1931 and we have the man and the woman roles really clear in society, she declares publicly that her marriage is a partnership with dual control, that they have equal responsibilities. They're both breadwinners, and she keeps her name.
Wow, ahead of her time.
Ahead of her time, and him too, because if you are imagining how much he should have been, he must have been maybe teased by other guys, maybe bullied by other guys. I mean, he let a woman be his equal in the public eye, and not only let that happen, he pursued her. So that's why I'm saying I love this guy, because he was believing in equals early on.
And she actually sent him I think it was the morning of the wedding, a little note just talking about, did you, yeah, I'll let you get into that. Did you read that one?
I read this. It's about how something about how pretty, however pretty the cage is going to be, I'm never going to be put in a cage, and I'm never going to be. I don't know if that was speaking about being faithful or not, but
I think so. Sort of
yeah,
like, I'm not going to worry about you being faithful. You don't worry about me being faithful. It was
wow,
kind of like being their own independent people as individuals.
wow.
Yeah, powerful.
This is very, very modern. Okay, so this is her with her husband, and we are coming to the last event of the first phase. In 1932, the first solo flight from Newfoundland to Ireland in 14 hours and 56 minutes. She is officially the first woman to fly solo nonstop across the Atlantic, and in that in those terms, she is gaining many honors from many different countries. So she has this celebrity status now. She is known all over the world, and now this is 1932. She is trying to raise the bar, and 4 years later, in 36, she is planning a trip around the world. If she succeeds again, she will be the first woman to do so. And this is where we are going to stop the background. And I'm going to ask the very last question to you, Sol, on the first part, of course. I would like for you to tell me, where does our passion for flying come from?
Yeah, and let's have a look. So there's more of a spiritual drive that I'm seeing to be like wanting to be the first. There's definitely a competitive edge as well. And I just see this in the freedom aspect of flying. And I keep feeling sort of like an open hearted, nothing can weigh my spirit down type energy that comes with this. So we'll pick a few cards. I'll flip these straight over. So yeah, she wanted to break through paradigm. She wanted to break through from the norm. She didn't want to be held. She felt more kind of that she could be her true self. And I feel if we were looking at her in a modern day times, and I'm just getting goosebumps every time we tune in or sort of speak about the energy of her spirit. She came here to break, yeah, to break cycles and patterns and things. But what I keep feeling is if she was here in the modern day time, she might have led a very different life in terms of like how she sort of dressed, how she, or perhaps even who she would have chosen to marry, and maybe not sort of conformed as much as she did, even though she's a very free spirit. But yeah, the Knight of Wands for me is quite often an indicator for those deeper kind of belief systems and things that are existing underneath. It is an energy of wanting to get up and out there, but we see there's a lot of hidden energy that comes with her. But Three of Discs, she wanted to be the first. She wanted to like establish different things. She had high goals and achievements, but yeah, there was just this kind of like energy and drive and fire within her belly to achieve the things that she did. So, and it's in her chart. It's in her astrology chart, which we'll have a look into that as well.
Oh, amazing. And somebody is asking, did she have a hard connection with the husband? I'm assuming it's with the husband. So I'm going to look in the cards for this.
Great question.
Mhm. I think it ended up being so, but it didn't start it to be that. We do have the solitaire card. So this is the lone wolf card, the Five of Pentacle. Probably there was a lot more challenge if she stayed single. We have the Ten of Swords, so the pressure was real on her to be married. And we have the Seven of Swords, which is the secret card in this deck. So we know that of this letter that you were talking about earlier, Solreta, where she is saying basically, I'm going to keep my private life away from you and you're going to keep yours also. It ended up to be a romantic match because we have Ace of Wands and the Queen of Cups. It ended up to be a romantic and physical relationship, but it did not start it this way at all. He was pursuing her, so I would like to take one card for him. Yeah. He liked the challenge. but he had a connection. It seems the card is the moon. He had a connection with her also because she was hard to get, and the card of the moon is the mother. So we see that he is repeating a pattern that he has with his mother. Not the most romantic thing, but this is what happens normally.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it doesn't sort of come across as perhaps, sometimes there'll be a dynamic of not receiving the love that you want from that mother figure. And so you end up choosing that same pattern or the repeat. So maybe, he could have been in that similar situation.
Yeah. So thank you for that question. That was really interesting. What happened next?
Yeah. So let me just pop up this. So what we see is it was in 1937. So around her last words, so flying over, it was near, let me just pronounce this properly. So it was Howland Island in 1937. She was attempting to become the first woman to complete and circumnavigate the globe in the Lockheed model, the 10-E Electra airplane. So her and her navigator, Fred Noonan, disappeared near Howland Island in the Central Pacific Ocean. So her last words that were actually spoken over the, I guess, air control or the little CB mic things they use were literally, "We are online 157-337 flying north and south." So these were the fatal last words that we hear her speak. And I do have, there's a few different scenarios. Let me just bring up my little screen share. So there's a few different things going around, and everyone wants to solve it. Everyone wants to get to the bottom, find the plane. So there's a few different scenarios I'm going to show you guys as well. Let me just bring this up.
She was a pioneering pilot, the first person to fly solo from Hawaii to the mainland U.S., and also the subject of one of the world's greatest mysteries.
I hope to accomplish something really scientifically worthwhile for aviation.
Amelia Earhart disappeared trying to circumnavigate the globe in 1937. Earhart and her twin-engine aircraft never to be found, unless this sonar image is the key to changing that.
Well, you'd be hard-pressed to convince me that it's anything but an aircraft, for one, and two, that it's not Amelia's aircraft.
That's pilot and real estate investor Tony Romeo, who set out on a 100-day deep-sea expedition last year near Howland Island, where Earhart was heading to refuel. Romeo's company, Deep Sea Vision, used multi-million-dollar sonar technology to capture this image 16,000 feet down, even deeper than the Titanic.
There's no other known crashes in the area, and certainly not of that era, and that kind of design with the tail that you see clearly in the image.
Underwater archaeologist Dr. Andrew Pietraszka isn't convinced yet.
It's not the first time that somebody's come forward with some piece of evidence of possibly finding Amelia, but I would certainly want to put eyes on that target and take a closer look.
So I'm just going to pause that there because we could go down that rabbit hole all day. So I do have another screen share that I'm just going to pop up. And let me just click on this one. So what we do see looking into her is we've got 5 leading theories behind the aviator Amelia Earhart's disappearance over the Pacific. So this was on one of our local news stations over here. So, still even today, quite a widely, there's a lot of public interest and intrigue. So one of them was that she crashed on the way to Howland Island, which is what we just heard. Then we have with the next one, so Japanese capture theory. So some people did say that perhaps she was caught, in the war by Japanese. And we then also have, and this was fascinating, the Irene Bolam hypothesis as well, which we will look further into this one tonight because there was a lot of spiritual intrigue and energy around this sort of situation. One thing that was said too, another theory was that if she was captured, that I think it was perhaps, don't quote me on this, I probably have it in my notes somewhere, but the president at the time, it may have been Roosevelt, I'm not too sure 100%, because I'm not American, so I don't know the history the most, but what we see with it was that there was perhaps him organizing to have her released, but it was also said that perhaps she was a spy. And so with that release, there would have been a change of identity, which would match up with this hypothesis of her being someone else. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it is Franklin D. Roosevelt. That was it was good memory. So the castaway theory as well was that perhaps like she was marooned on an island. But what we also see is the Burke Island wreck as well. But what we're going to focus on, and I'm just going to stop this screen share for a moment and jump back into a little window that I have. I'm just bringing up, it's just like a little quick video. So this will sort of show you a little bit of a face kind of transparency to do with the two characters. Oh, and I should also say as well, so with the person that they're talking about, Amelia Earhart, assuming a new kind of name, a new persona and things too, the person whose identity that she was said to take over was actually a lady that was involved in airplanes and things, and Amelia was familiar with. And this person suddenly died, and Amelia came back from, I guess, that end of the war period, and all of a sudden, you know, took on a new name and things, is what's said to be. So let me just bring up this little screen share. And I don't think this one didn't have sound because it was more a photo. But I'm going to play this for you guys. And so you can see Amelia's photo transposed with Irene's. And you can see it sort of fits with the jawline, the positioning, like with the ears, the nose, the mouth, even the teeth and things too, which teeth, you know, can be a lot harder. And let me just have a look into, oh, I've got a Facebook ad popping up. Let me just see what that one is. Okay. This one I want to share with you guys. So we have, so with this one, this is also like deeper comparison with Amelia Earhart to the post-war Irene O'Crowley Craigmile. So what's also interesting is that Amelia did have an interest in like philosophy and different things. And I kept getting sort of like more of an intuition perhaps about even being connected to do with the cult or different things of that sort of nature. And we see maybe like a little bit of an energy around that to do with her astrology and things. So you can see here, they're just sort of doing comparisons. This I just wanted to put up because it's really, really interesting. If you guys want to go down this rabbit hole, you can see they've done a progression of like her aging. But yeah, it's something you guys might want to individually go and check out. And I want to really deep dive though into, let me just bring down this. So with this, when I look into her face, and we'll just bring up your picture that you had, Sophie.
Yeah.
So when we look into her face, we see that she has a nice oval shaped face, which is generally like, you know, well liked, kind of like balanced. You know, there can be an attractive quality with an oval face too, that people sort of like, you know, will accept people a little bit more. And remember that, you know, most of communication is nonverbal. So it'll be through like our facial features, things of this sort of nature. So she has a very high forehead. This is like quite a dominant area for her. So this represents like really high intelligence, probably being in her mind a lot, probably like thinking, perhaps even maybe like, you know, really kind of like dwelling on things like within her mind or sort of seeking out that visionary mission side of things. She had a really high brow bone. And even if you look into some of the other photos, and I'll just see if we've got one on here. I think it might have been one of the other ones that you had, but you'll see in some pics of her, like this one I've got here, you'll see that her brow bone is actually very, very prominent. And what I mean by that is this is more of kind of like a masculine trait. So we see here just around like this brownie kind of ridge. With this is usually more of a masculine trait that we see in sports people. So this would indicate, you know, her with that high achievement, wanting to kind of like go into the, not that it's really a sport, but it is more of a masculine thing to be a pilot. But what we see with this too is that this area and the jaw, which she actually had, you know, more of a sort of a developed jaw as well when we look at her mouth and everything. This is more kind of to do with testosterone. So it does seem even earlier on that there looks like an incidence of more higher testosterone. So sometimes this can happen in utero, depending on like what chemicals and things we're exposed to, will develop even more estrogen dominance or more testosterone dominance. So regardless if we're male or female. So we're definitely seeing that be out of whack or out of balance in this modern day time. So when we look into the brow shape too, she more has kind of like rounded shape, which would indicate more kind of like balanced, so accommodating, having a bit of charm is also associated with this. Being able to handle difficult people, have a strong sense of pride, personal expectations. Usually they have strong boundaries, which we see with her and her husband and what she kind of set out earlier in life. So she may have also been really tough on herself and had like high expectations. I'm just going to bring up this other picture again. So she also has very deep set eyes. So when you look into this part and the brow and bone structure too, her eyes are kind of deep set back. So we don't always know like what she's thinking, what's kind of going on within the background of her mind. She may have sort of said what would please or kind of like get her further forward in terms of career and everything. So with this is like someone who more keeps the cards close to their chest. So it also would represent as well someone who can do things for the career advancement, but perhaps put like emotions and things aside. She also had like more of a wide set eyes, which is more kind of someone who, is looking for adventure, looking at like a wider view on reality on the earth, not just sort of, happy and content, like staying fixed or being a housewife, for example. It's not within her face. The other thing we see too, as she got later in life, because she was 39, so she said to have passed just before her 40th birthday. She had some lines too that would indicate more kind of like a deeper loss. We also see like adrenal burnout stuff with her. So she would have really been this sort of person that would just keep herself like going and going and going. What was interesting too is the high cheekbones sort of more representing this adventurous spirit and nature. She didn't mind attention. When we sort of look towards her ears and things, she doesn't mind like a little bit of attention or kind of being, the central focus or the woman within the man's world is what we see. She has everything she needed to have the life that she had. When we look to her nose as well, she's like likable, creative. It does indicate though with her finance and things and her nostrils that perhaps she might have felt like she just didn't have enough. So we see that with what you were saying, like with having to sell the plane. So everything that sort of happened for her, we can kind of bring back to different things on the face. She does have a strong chin, which is denoting like more determination, strong intuition. So she would have been the sort of person as well, and I've written in my little notes, that would have made like spur decisions or been like, I'm doing that, and not even have the time to back it up to realize like why she's kind of moving with that intuition. So we also see she was really good at communicating. What we also see in some of the old videos of her, you can see she actually has quite a big gap in her teeth. This is more someone who, makes instant intuitive decisions without knowing full outcome and can literally be seen as a daredevil. So I definitely feel that like her face fits the character that we see. She was also said to be more kind of like privileged upper class woman, as you were talking about, coming from wealth early on. And to see if there's anything that I missed. She just like had this physical kind of like unmatched energy and enthusiasm. So I found that so interesting to look into her face and to have a look into this. We also have her chart as well. So I might just bring this up a little bit closer. And so what we can see with her midhaven is in Capricorn. So we're sort of seeing like in terms of a mission and that. And I liken Capricorn to being that one that's like, there's like the highest mountain. I'm going to climb this and I'm going to be the one to do it. And no one's going to tell me otherwise. And I'm not even going to look back to see if anyone's watching me. So we see this as kind of like perhaps a little bit of her soul mission. She also had her North Node in Aquarius as well. So with this, it's in the 10th house. So this will sometimes talk about like a visionary, someone who wants to kind of like imagine a better future, and they'll work towards it. So very unique, unconventional approach. They can approach fresh ideas and progress towards their chosen career, enhancing the public image and contributing to a lasting legacy. So we definitely see like that 10th house with the North Node in Aquarius. We also have it was her Venus was in Gemini in the 2nd house. So this would more kind of be someone who's kind of good with communication, perhaps even using like a little bit of flirtiness to kind of like forge ahead, or perhaps even get what they want. But it does also denote like being, good with communication. She had her part of fortune, which is the little cross within the circle symbol. This was also like in the 2nd house as well. So this also suggests financial success is tied into communication skills, diverse source of income as well. But yeah, she was a Leo. I saw someone else say like Leo, a lot of fire and things. We see her ascendant being in Taurus. So like wanting that stability, still wanting kind of, the home and things that go by this, but like being very stubborn as well is what we tend to see with this. So yeah, it was a really interesting look into her chart and everything. But the face reading for me was what kind of everything matched up with the personality, her view on the world. It just blew me away.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because yes, she had a lot of testosterone, and yes, she didn't look the most feminine, but we tend to look a lot like our past lives. And I'm guessing she didn't have a lot of feminine past life with what she is showing in this current life. Well, in this life that we're talking about. So for me, this plus the fact that she, like Tim mentioned, Tim was saying, could there be also a post-surgery meta have caused increase in testosterone? We will not know. So let's ask the cards. Can you ask Solreta, was she born female, and what caused this huge masculine energy in her physical look, but also in just her being?
Yeah. So even looking back into her facial structure and things like that, I would say that it was probably more in utero, the testosterone that she had the exposure of. The other thing that we tend to see with kind of that deeper set bones and those eyes is sometimes we can even see a little bit of autistic tendencies, is what some of the new studies are saying too. So that fixated kind of like, I can't focus on anything else but flying, I have to do this, sometimes can be like a little bit of that obsessive, like more autistic trait, which, there wasn't as much known about back then too. But that also usually will pair with, females being more exposed to testosterone. There's usually a higher incident of, Asperger's, autism, things of that nature. But in regards to Tim's question, the facial interpretation, the question disappeared, but he was asking about like, was this something that came from post-surgery? I'm more sort of seeing this be something that was already kind of when the cells were developing. So we see here, it almost looks like in utero kind of cells dividing, 6 of disc. We're just sort of seeing like, I guess, interference and things like that on a hormonal level. So yeah, interesting.
Interference. Okay, that's really interesting. So, and according to your cards and what we're seeing right now, she was born female, but there is interference in utero, correct?
Yeah. So it more tends to be, whether it's from kind of like a natural hormone exposure of the mum, perhaps having more testosterone like in the environment, and different chemicals and things will also switch on. So we see with the plastics and things, and nowadays situation, a lot of male babies are being exposed to a lot more synthetic estrogen. So we're getting a lot of feminized males and things too.
Absolutely.
But sometimes there's just more of a hormonal imbalance, even that the mums can be going through, that'll expose their babies. So, but we do also see more of a masculine kind of like androgen body shape. So we know that she didn't have kids. She did have 2 stepchildren through her husband that were twins. But when we saw so say for example, like supermodels being more androgenic in terms of like hormones or sort of straight up and down, they do tend to have more trouble getting pregnant too. But with the type of character she is, I don't know if that's something she would have wanted to, put her career on pause to go in, or if she had that maternal sort of energy.
Maybe not. Interesting. So I'm going to ask the cards, was she a soul that was mainly off-worlders in her past incarnation, or was she a soul that was mainly human?
Yeah, that is really interesting. Let's have a look into that.
We do have the off-worlder showing up a lot.
I do feel more off-worlder energy, more kind of like coming here to like break change, to shake things up. Yeah, she was a powerful, powerful soul. I do hear the word soul contract as well with this. So 9 of Wands, 4 of Disc. So really powerful soul coming in. On a human karmic level, though, there was certain things that she needed to experience. So some of the hurts and the pains and the losses that she experienced, which you can actually see on some of the lines in her face, but she had a higher purpose, a higher spiritual purpose. So she kind of forged the way for a lot of females.
Absolutely. Can I ask you what really happened? Let's ask the card a big question.
I got goosebumps then. Let's have a look. Oh, and you know what? For other people wanting to look more into that mystery around perhaps the identity change and around her being a spy as well, there's a video of the lady in the 70s, that Irene character, actually kind of doing a press interview and saying, it's not me. And she's like quite passionately, and there's comments and people are like, that's exactly like how Amelia would have said it. So there's kind of like a sassy type attitude, but let's flip these over and see like what really happened. So we are just seeing like this being shrouded in mystery and things, but I'm actually seeing like her, it almost like, it looks like that there was perhaps like a decision that she had to go through. So it feels like really, really hard. We see 8 of Wands energy, which is where we can sometimes feel like stuck or feel plateaued, or we feel like there's no way out of a sort of situation. I would say this is perhaps more kind of like an imprisonment type situation that she had to fight her way out of. So Princess of Swords, yellow energy more kind of represents the intellect or diplomatic type energies. So there might have been like diplomatic red tape that she had to overcome. But then we see her coming out of this as Queen of Wands. So I don't see this as an energy of her dying. I actually see Knight of Wands is being going, and look at this, it's flying too. So we even see people call her out. There was a guy that called her out, I think it was in the 70s, that it was sort of more exposed. And it was at a talk to do with aviation and things, that she was a person in the audience as this Irene character. And he's like, that is Amelia. So yeah, I do feel that there was still that fascination and that obsession that she wasn't able to stay away from the aviation side of things. Let me just ask around the spy question, because I think that's the one that's really, really intriguing. Wow. Okay, we have a lot of Swords energy, and we see someone assuming 2 different personalities or identities. So 8 of Swords and 3 of Swords. So I do feel that it was sort of perhaps even a little bit heartbreaking having to leave that older identity to then go into and merge. So it was like merging kind of like the 2 different personalities, but into one life. So yeah, I just see this as kind of like a dual identity situation. So definitely not what I expected when we picked the character Amelia Earhart to, yeah, it's just what a wonderful character in history. And she definitely was exciting to research.
Absolutely. So are you feeling that she was a spy from this?
I do feel, but I feel that it was almost like it was a leverage. So there may have been funding or different things that came as a bonus. And that's what I feel that they used perhaps to kind of like leverage, but perhaps because there was an unassuming energy behind too. So let's just get a card more from that perspective. Yeah, she sort of more flew under the radar, to use like a airplane term. So what we see is they weren't expecting a female. So just being the character of a female and sort of having the cover story, we're more sort of seeing she's able to go in plain sight a little bit easier.
Interesting. And we have this comment from Lakeside Laura. She's asking, did she actually crash? So let's start with this first part of the question. Do you think that she actually crashed?
The vision that I see is more kind of like, it's more like ejecting or leaving the plane is the vision that I see. So I'm seeing like the plane perhaps crash. Queen of Swords, which is interesting because it looks like an ejection or someone flying up into the air, but they've lost their plane. And the identity, they're stripping off and peeling away the old identity with that. And I feel like this is sort of the hard crossroad energy with that leverage. So it might be taking a deal or taking money or whatever. Yeah. There's something more of a mystery around this. And I keep seeing finance come up and be involved. The other thing I keep seeing too is a bit of sadness in having to walk away from family or old life. The other thing that I really feel too is because she had built herself to such kind of like a well-known height and success, she actually really liked the spotlight, is what I'm feeling. And there's a sadness in having to kind of more be this hermit energy. It's almost like there's a grieving or a death around having to like leave that public spotlight. So that's where I'm seeing her pop up at little press events or other aviation type things, just still keeping a pulse on it and still being in the energy of that.
Well, you know what's interesting with this is that you mentioned that she loves to be the front center, but after you have successfully flown all over the globe, what is next?
Yeah.
So there is this part of maybe she wanted us to talk about her past the last thing she could have done. Otherwise, her career may have gone just, crashing down, for lack of better words. So.
And that's what I feel like she really was trying to get you and I to more talk about her because, with her passing, it's okay to talk about now. And it's okay to kind of like bring the attention and the spotlight. But remember, we looked into with her face and with the astrology, it was all about like leaving a legacy. Mm-hmm. So if her legacy can continue to still have controversy and mystery and things around this, it just gets more and more fascinating. It almost like refans the flames of her personality and her character.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer with the cards the second part of your question, like Saidora. So you were asking, did she actually crash? Solreta answer, and purposely disappear. So let's see, was that something that she wanted to do? Did she wanted to disappear? Absolutely yes. Oh my God. So with the Queen of Cup, we have the mastery of emotions. So she mastered this manipulation with emotions, and this is the veil with smoke. So, when in old movies, when they have this big smoke and then the villain disappear, it's like it's a smoke show. And we have the success card with the 6 of Wands next to it. And we have divine partnership. So people are involved in this. I'm actually very surprised to see this. Was that something that you suspected?
When you were saying like, sort of throwing the smoke up and disappearing, like in the movies and things, to me, that was the Queen of Swords card too, where we see sort of like the air. And that's more kind of like what I feel is there's a little bit more intrigue and mystery. And I just keep seeing like a shiny glint. So the vision I'm getting is of her. And I'm sort of seeing like a little twinkle in the eye and just, it's kind of like dropping, what we call a mic drop moment is what I'm kind of seeing with this. And then like watching from the scenes and the sidelines as like people try and figure out the mystery. So yeah. Oh, thank you, Laura.
So the next question I would have for you is, we do have new findings. Are they correct? Are they real? Is that the real thing? What do we have in the new findings?
Yeah, so they did, as we played that little clip, the one that I started with as well, it said about Howland Island. They were saying perhaps it was the plane because it had the same sort of tail and things like that. But the vision I was seeing was more her sort of like jumping and leaving the plane. There was other things where they said that they looked into bones and things that they were found. And they said, measurement wise that, it should match up with things. What I want to know though, is because certain skulls will have female energy or female kind of bone structure, and some will have male. So I couldn't find enough evidence to really, put something together, and Spirit kept leading me more towards assuming another identity. That was just the rabbit hole that Spirit time and time again, whether it's, looking into the cards like we did to see those answers come up. But I feel like the secrets were in her face, just in terms of like who she was, such a different character, not your normal everyday person, but this ability to be able to, you can see it within her face. And perhaps like if it's sort of like her highest aspiration, that she could walk away from, from this old life if she had to.
Absolutely. And she could disguise as a man really easily from.
Oh. Sorry, I had an alarm set for something.
So maybe the next question that I really want to know is, did she had some kind of, well, we know it's mainly not an accident. So did she had some kind of life after it? Did she restart her whole life? Was she in a witness protection? What happened after this?
Yeah, when I was looking in and researching this, I kept getting shown visions of like paper and writing. And I feel like there was like hidden little things that were perhaps written. So whether there was a diary or there was like hidden in poetry or something of this sort of nature, Spirit kept kind of leading me down this path. But unfortunately, I didn't find anything. What I also find interesting is we know sometimes within like society, or if you've come in from certain families or more kind of like the higher end of things, is that we do sometimes find where you'll get like the transgender side of things or the inversions. And I'm not saying she was this, but I'm just saying it's interesting what we know in our modern day times. But what I did find fascinating too, and we'll look into the cards a little bit deeper around this. Let me just tune in. Was, they have like a high energy around the occult side of things, or they have a fascination for that. And the name that she took on, being Crowley, is more kind of like the satanic sort of name too. I found that very fascinating. Oh my gosh, I forgot to share with you the gematria. Let me just find out where I highlighted this. So when we look into the gematria of the name Amelia Earhart, and I'll just see if I've got this. It might not have printed up properly. I think I highlighted it. What we sort of see is her name, when you put it into gematria, it said something spy. So it literally, like, her energy name matches with like a hidden spy or something like that, that it was. I can't find where I've highlighted it on there. Sorry, Sophie, what was the question? I got a bit ADHD distracted.
It's okay. I know it's early for you anyway. So the question was actually after whatever, how you want to call it, a crash or being ejected from the plane or whatever it is, it's after she got basically out of the plane, what was her life? Did she have a new life? What happened? Was she in a protection witness program? Was she as a man? What was after?
Yeah, the word that I'm hearing is burn. So whether it was sort of like a burner or having, like to burn. And I'm just having a look. Oh my gosh, this is so interesting. So we see, like, within the cards, having to emotionally disconnect and remove herself from any of the ties. So we have an 8 of Cups. This is the Capricorn, or it's Saturn energy, but we remember like her Capricorn, what she had with the midheaven as well. So this more would be an energy of being able to kind of like cut off, disconnect, like be a little bit more abrupt and harsh as well. We see a whole new path. It's the Fool card. It's the start of a journey. What we also see was, though, that she had to let go of the marriage. So we've got the marriage card, we've got the Tower card, we've got the Devil card as well. So that saying of burn, what I got before like flipping the cards too, that's what we're seeing. It looks like an indication of having to kind of burn
Bridges, yeah, and possibly
Yeah.
also physically being burned when you have this kind of a, this crash. Even though she was ejected from the plane, you could have severe burns from whatever reasons with it. So,
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm not sort of seeing like the burn side, but what we do see, I've got my different timeline card. So she literally like, this is a new timeline, this is a new character. And I feel like it was like a role. So it's almost compartmentalizing and playing a different character or a different role. And that's the star card. This is the ET kind of, it was almost like she was channeling, because this will represent channeling too. So yeah, we're seeing someone who's able to compartmentalize things mentally to step into a new role.
Absolutely. There is going to be still a mystery around her, and I think we could spend many hours on a topic, and still there would be things to talk about. But overall, I think she was a great topic for tonight, and definitely a great mystery to deep dive into with the tarot. I so appreciate what you read, Solreta. Thank you so much for all of your energy tonight.
Oh, thank you, Sophie. And I just really appreciate like all the research and putting together of the shows that you do too, and looking into the cards. I love it when we get the match-up cards that are, saying similar information. It's fascinating. And thank you to our audience.
Thank you so much, audience. And we do offer private readings, the 1 hour you can find on maisonjupiter.com. You can use a 10% coupon code Jupiter to book with either of us. It is going to give you 10% on your next reading of tarot or past life with either of us. We are on YouTube, also Rumble. Our love language is like, so thank you so much for giving us some like and some comments. We really appreciate that. We appreciate you, your love, your support. Thank you so much. And we will be seeing you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.